All right, Shalom. All praises, glory, and honor unto Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushua, Bahashim, Machapadash, double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that give us his truth and all his purity, and salutations to all the I can bring this word throughout the four corners of the earth, in sincerity and in truth. This is the brother Yahweh, and this lesson is going into the fire to come, which is going to be World War III, the war of Armageddon, the war to end all wars. And as we see, all over the earth, there's nothing but tensions going on, tensions, nuclear tensions between the nations. And you have all these heat waves taking place, all these different wildfires taking place all over the earth. And, this is only the beginning. As we're going to read here in Luke chapter 12, verse 49, it says, I am come to send fire on the earth, which is Yahushua speaking. He's coming to send fire on the earth. The fire that he's coming to send is the judgment of Yahweh Shemashah in the form of these nuclear missiles. The scriptures talk about 200 million warheads taking America off the face of the earth. Babylon the Great. So Yahushua said, I am come to send fire on the earth. And what will lie if it already be kindled? So what will lie if it already be kindled? Yahushua is only coming to add more fuel to the fire. He's only coming to end the job. He's not coming to quench the fire. People, praying for the fire to be quenched. You got all these Christians, these people all over the world. Whenever you see these different headlines or, you see the different news, you see people praying away these things, trying to pray away the Lord's prophecies, But, prophecy's still going to happen. It's still going to unfold whether you believe or not, whether you want it to happen or not, So Yahushua said, I am come to send fire on the earth, and what will lie if it already be kindled? So the fire is already kindled now with all these different tensions. Now in the news, you got, Iran versus America. And that tension is brewing into, nuclear tension. Iran is preparing missiles that can reach the soils of America, and they're saying it's time for Americans to feel what it's like to get hit by missiles, So this thing is close, man. This thing is getting ready to go down, and that's how we know that the mark of the beast prophecy is right around the corner, because these nations are all preparing, for nuclear intentions, for nuclear war. The nuclear tension is now, but they're preparing for nuclear war. The U.S. is preparing for war with China and Russia. They're planning on using tactical nukes to try to end it off quick, to have limited strikes and all that. But, hey, that ain't going to happen, man. Once it go nuclear, everybody going nuclear, The Lord ain't just going to have little pockets of, nuclear wars happening. And no, this thing, once the missiles get shot, one missile gets shot, all missiles get shot. That's why it's known as MAD, which means mutually assured destruction. So these Edomites, these nations, they're going to end up destroying each other. So this is Isaiah chapter 9, verse 5. For every battle of the warrior is with confused noise and garments sword and blood. So every battle in the ancient times, was fought with confused noise and garments sword and blood. Men clinging, swords, battling it out. Guts spilling, men screaming in pain, horses galloping, confused noise, chariots, the noise of chariots riding, and garments full of blood. But this coming war shall be with burning and fuel of fire. So this war is going to be the only war to be fought strictly with fire, which is nuclear missiles, atomic bombs, nuclear bombs. It's all going to be bombs. Even before the missiles hit, it's going to be drone warfare, right? Drones, missiles, cruise missiles, all types of different weaponries, man. So it's going to be mostly fought by fire, which is why there's going to be so many bodies over there in that region in the Middle East, as we see, with the war in Ukraine. You see it's even with the war in Iran, but more so the war with Ukraine. You could see all those videos of soldiers, different platoons and, getting taken out by drones. One drone, two drone, just taking them out. So picture that on a wider scale over that whole region of the Middle East, man. This war is going to be fought with burning and fuel of fire. This is the book of Malachi, chapter 1. Oh, no, Malachi 4, I think. 4 and 1. This is Malachi chapter 4, verse 1. It says, "For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven." That's right. So the day is going to come that's going to burn as an oven, which is the missiles, burning the earth. All right. It's going to burn all throughout different parts of the earth. America is going to be strictly annihilated, turned to a lake of fire, where you're going to have China get hit, Russia get hit, NATO get hit, parts of Africa get hit. All over the earth is going to feel that fire. This is Malachi 4 and 1. It says, "For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven." Now we know that there's no time in history where it felt like people were getting cooked alive. We had heat waves. We're having plenty of heat waves now. China just got hit with 120-degree weather, heat waves all over the earth. Throughout Asia, throughout Africa, throughout Europe, throughout America. There's heat waves happening all over. Heat waves, floods, volcano eruptions, earthquakes, all these different things taking place is Yahweh Shah stirring up the pot, for his second return. The ultimate fire, the ultimate plague he's going to bring is the missiles. So it says, "For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith the Lord of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch." So the missiles is going to utterly annihilate this place. It's not going to have any root nor branch, meaning there's not going to be anything growing on this place anymore. The scriptures talk about how Babylon the Great is going to be a desert, and it's not going to be ever inhabited. The Arabians shall not pitch tent there, and the shepherds is not going to make its fold there. So this space is going to be rooted out, all right, by the missiles. This is let's get Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 8. It says, "Therefore wait ye upon me, saith the Lord Yahweh Shemashah, power unto the day that I rise up to the prey. For my determination is to gather the nations." So the Lord said to wait upon him. We're not supposed to be bearing arms, taking arms, going to camp with assault rifles and, portraying this idea that we're militant, marching, 1,000-man march, 1,000,000-man march, stomping with big boots and letting the white man know we're an army. No, the Lord said to wait upon him. Wait on that power, the spiritual power. Wait on salvation. We're not supposed to be taking matters in our own hands. We've seen countless times throughout history of Israel trying to go against the will of Yahweh Shemashah and fighting against the powers that be and getting taken out. The Zealots is a great example of that, which those Zealots, the Zealots, the Sicaries, the Sicarios, they're back today. Them niggas in Sicari, man. Even Al-Azhar, he admitted when he heard their story, he said, "Yeah, we them niggas, bruh." Right? And you see how they love going to camp with guns, showing up with assault rifles and all of that, putting out that image. Right? So this is them trying to rise up to the prey. The prey being Esau, right? This is them trying to rise up to the prey, but the Lord, is gonna, take their what's the word I'm looking for? Frustrate their plans, so to speak. You got Israelites like ISUPK, being militant, right? Training to fight against the white man, But we seen how that played out throughout history. Them Zealots, them Sicaris, they got taken out, right? The Lord said the powers that be are of the Most High, And if any man resist the power, the Most High is gonna, punish them. In the book of Romans, the 13th chapter. So we gotta wait on the Lord. It says, "For my determination is to gather the nations." Now, let me see what determination is in the Hebrew. The word there is mashapat. That's right, mashapat, which we know is going into judgment. Yep, judgments, justice, ordinance, an act of deciding a case. That's right. So what is the case? The scriptures talk about Isaiah 34. Lord's will, I'm gonna get that. It speaks about what? The controversy of Zion. You know? So the controversy of Zion, Zion being the children of Israel, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. What is the controversy the Lord has with the nations, specifically with Edom? It's the fact that you have the children of Israel in captivity, and you're not giving us justice. Nolan Wells, all these different Jakes of our people that's getting slaughtered by the cops, getting shot, or that's getting killed by Edomites, just centuries of oppression. And, you devils have no remorse. You devils don't care. You double down on the disrespect, on the pride. So guess what? The Most High is going to be the one to come down and, smite the anvil, bring that judgment on you. All right? So the determination of the Most High, the judgment of the Most High, is to gather the nations. It says, therefore wait ye upon me, saith the Lord, until the day that I rise up to the prey. For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms. That's right. So the Lord is assembling the kingdoms over there. This is why you see all these nations sending in their troops. You got Russian troops over there already operating, helping Iran. Russian and Chinese troops. You got these Arab nations. They're preparing to invade Iran. They want to have a ground invasion in Iran and telling Trump about it. They're prepping for it. Trump wants the ground invasion as well. So, it's pretty much going to be a big brawl. The Lord's going to throw everybody up in there, man. Ukraine just got themselves involved in there by attacking Iran as well as Turkey. So, Ukraine is involved now. And Turkey's going to have to be involved with Ukraine, right? Iran is going to have to attack Ukraine, and Iran is talking about attacking America with missiles now, So this thing is getting ready to go down. All these nations are going to have a draft, The draft is going to happen here in December, right? December, they're going to have the draft, and the age got raised to 42 years old, so they're getting ready for this up-and-coming world war. And they're going to need bodies, man. Millions and millions of bodies, man. The scriptures talk about multitudes in the valley of Jehoshaphat, right? Matter of fact, let me get two scriptures. This is Revelation chapter 16, verse 16. And he gathered them together into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon, right? So Armageddon, we know, is Armageddon. Yep. It says Armageddon. When the Hebrew is, the Hebrew origin, it says Ar and Magadana, right? It says hill or city of Megiddo. It says in Revelation 16:16, the scene of the struggle of good and evil is suggested by the battle plain of Esdraelon, which was famous for two victories of Barak over the Canaanites and of Gideon over the Midianites. But we know it's talking about, mountain of troops, because in the Hebrew is Harma and God one, which means mountain, hill of multitudes, right? So that's over there in that region. So the Most High is the one gathering the nations over there using these devils, the so-called white man, to orchestrate this world war. Just like the so-called white man, orchestrated World War I and World War II, according to Albert Pike, World War III is being orchestrated as we speak, right? But this is all the will of Yahweh Bashim Shah, This is, matter of fact, before I get Joel, let me get Isaiah 34. This is Isaiah chapter 34, verse 1. Come near, ye nations, to hear, and hearken, ye people, Let the earth hear and all that is therein, the world and all things that come forth of it. For the indignation of the Lord, Yahweh Shemashah power is upon all nations, and his fury upon all their armies. He have utterly destroyed them. He have delivered them to the slaughter. That's right. It's not going to be a fair fight, man. Yahweh Shah, when he returns with the holy angels, the multitudes of, innumerable multitude of angels, gazillions and zillions. Can't even put a number on it, man. Yahweh Shah coming with the heavenly realm, ships the size of planets, ships the size of cities, ships the size of continents, different size ships, different color ships, all types of ships, man, pulling up big time with a gigantic fathership that's bigger than the earth, with a gigantic man, Yahweh Shah, bigger than the earth. That's why the scriptures say every eye is going to see him, man. When I picture the Lord's return, as far as size comparison, it's like, grabbing an apple, that's how big Yahweh Shah, gonna look, man, where he could grab the earth with his bare hands, right? So it says, for the indignation of the Lord is upon all nations, and his fury upon all their armies. He have utterly destroyed them. He have delivered them to the slaughter. And according to Revelation 12, as well as 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter, the so-called white man is going to battle it out, try to fight against Yahweh Shah and the angels, and the other nations are going to try to help him out when they see Yahweh Shah on that chariot. But the Lord said what? In 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter, that they're going to be turned to dust and smell of smoke. Yahweh Shah ain't even going to have to lift up a finger. You see? So these nations, they got their space force. They're all getting ready, because deep down they know what's about to happen, right? So it says, their slain also shall be cast out, and their stink shall come up out of their carcasses, and the mountains shall be melted with their blood, and all the host of heaven shall be dissolved, and the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll, and all their hosts shall fall down as a leaf falleth forth from the vine, and as a fallen fig from the fig tree. So this is all nuclear war. The heavens rolled as a scroll is their mushroom cloud, where you see the circle, the ring of smoke rolls around the center of that mushroom cloud. That's how it rolls, like a scroll. All right. And their hosts shall fall down as a leaf falleth forth from the vine, and as a fallen fig from the fig tree, because the missiles, they fall in an arch-like fashion. Like when the wind blows on a fig tree or any fruit tree, like a mango tree, it falls, towards the direction of the wind. So that's how the missiles are gonna fall like an arch, right? It says, for my sword shall be bathed in heaven, which the sword of the Lord is the ICBMs. It's gonna dip into space, and come down. Behold, it shall come down upon Idumea, which is the Greek way of saying Edom. Esau, Edom being you so-called white people, the so-called Europeans, right? And upon the people of my cursed judgment. You're the people of the Lord's curse. You're the Edomites. You're cursed from the earth. That's what was told unto Cain. You're the children of Cain, man. You have a biblical curse known as leprosy, which is that pale flesh that you have, that pink, red skin. They got you looking like swine because you're unclean animals. You're unclean people. You're the Edomites, the people whom the Lord despises. It says, the sword of the Lord is filled with blood. It is made fat with fatness, and with the blood of lambs and goats, with the fat of the kidneys of rams, which is all symbolic for talking about nations. The lambs being Israelites, the goats being you so-called white people, right? You're known as the he-goat. And Daniel, it identifies Alexander as the he-goat. It says, and with the blood of lambs and goats. Lambs is Israel, and the fat of the kidneys of rams, which is your other nations. For the Lord have a sacrifice in Basra, and a great slaughter in the land of Idumea. So America is an altar, a sacrificial altar, for the Lord, to get rid of these people, man. And you people, you're the sacrifice, you're the meat. All right. And the fire for that sacrifice is going to be the missiles, man. I know it's Joel 3. I mean, I can read this. Yep, this is Joel 2:1. It says, blow ye the trumpet in Zion, and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord cometh, for it is nigh at hand. So we're blowing the trumpet, by doing these lessons, prophesying, going out on the highways and byways. That's how we blowing the trumpet, which the trumpet is a warning, letting you know that war is coming, death is coming. Prepare yourselves. It says, a day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains, a great people and a strong, that have not ever been ever the like, neither shall there be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. That's right. So, a dark day is coming, a gloomy day, a day of nuclear winter. That's what this is going into. It says a great people and a strong. Now it's comparing the missiles to a great people and a strong. And when you go to Revelation, it's comparing the missiles unto an army of horsemen, John said he heard the number of them, and it was 200,000, which is 200 million warheads, So it says a great people and a strong, they have not been ever the like, neither shall there be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. Because once the missiles hit, that's it. Ain't going to be no World War IV, World War V, that's it. It's over for you nations. It says, verse 3, a fire divideth before them, and behind them a flame burneth. The land is as the garden of Eden before them, and behind them is desolate wilderness, yea, and nothing shall escape them. So missiles, man, the fire that's in the warhead, does the destruction, and the flame behind them is what propels it, It says the land is as the garden of Eden before them, right? Which means before it hits, it looks beautiful. You see America. It's a beautiful country. It's a beautiful land. It's, the Indians lived here. It was paradise. And if you drive interstate, you'll see how much land and how much beauty America has. So the land is as the garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolate wilderness. Because after they hit, this space is going to get totally annihilated. Scriptures talk about how this space is going to be made a desert. It says, yea, and nothing shall escape them. So nothing shall escape. If you're on the soils here, there is no time of escape. You can't hide underground. You can't take a plane. You can't drive. There's nothing you can do but die. The appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, and as horsemen, so shall they run. That's right. Just like it says in Revelation, the number of the horsemen, right? So the appearance is as the appearance of horses, and as horsemen, so shall they run, because they're very swift. It says, like the noise of chariots in the tops of mountains shall they leap, like the noise of a flame of fire that devoureth the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array. That's right. And look at videos of these missiles. You hear that flame, that loud flame burning in the sky from afar. And you hear, the loud roar, the engine, the propeller, the sound barrier breaking, right? That's what this represents. It says, verse 6, before their face the people shall be much pained, all faces shall gather blackness. Yeah, because people going to look up and see the missiles coming down, and there's just going to be, pure panic. All faces shall gather blackness. They shall run like mighty men. They shall climb the wall like men of war. They shall march everyone on his ways, and they shall not break their ranks, meaning the missiles aren't going to, lose target. They're not going to fail. They're not going to accidentally bump into each other and destroy each other. It says, neither shall one thrust to another. They shall walk everyone on this path, and when they shall fall upon the sword, they shall not be wounded. So missile defense systems ain't going to be able to stop them. They're going to invade, and they're going to run right through it. You might have a defense system, actually hit one of the missiles coming towards them, but the missile ain't going to stop moving, because the spirit of the Lord is going to be in these missiles. It says, they shall run to and fro in the city. They shall run upon the wall. They shall climb up upon the houses. They shall enter in the windows like a thief, which is going into the sky. Like the scriptures say in Genesis, the windows on high was open, and it started to rain, And Isaiah 24, it says the same thing. The windows on high open, Matter of fact, I'm going to get that too really quick. Let me finish this. It says, they shall run to and fro in the city. They shall run upon the wall. They shall climb up upon the houses. They shall enter in the windows like a thief. The earth shall quake before them. The heavens shall tremble. The sun and the moon shall be dark, and the stars shall rejoice their shining. That's right. So the earth shall quake before them, and the heavens shall tremble. The scriptures say what? The Lord said, I'll rise once more, not to shake the earth only, but the heavens also. These missiles, the shock wave, actually shake the very sky, man. You know? And Yahweh Shah's presence alone, is going to be so strong, so powerful that his presence alone is going to shake the heavens and the earth. You see? So it says, the sun and the moon shall be dark, and the stars shall rejoice their shining because of the smoke blocking the sky. It says, and the Lord shall utter his voice before his army, for his camp is very great. For he is strong that executeth his word, for the day of the Lord is great and very terrible, and who can abide it? That's right. So, the ones that's going to abide is the elect. Everybody else is either going to be destroyed or they're going to suffer after the missiles hit. When you read Revelation, it speaks about how, they're going to go through things, The waters are going to be made bitter because it's going to be contaminated with radiation. They're going to die of starvation. They're going to go through it. It's going to look like the movie The Road out here for a little while. And the scriptures talk about how the elect, how they're going to be in, in the chariots. They're going to be in the chariots for a little moment, which that little moment, could be years, could be decades, because the spirit realm, time behaves differently, so it could be 5 years, 10 years on the chariot while everybody's suffering down here, still dying, dropping dead, So this is, let's see, Isaiah 24. Yep, it's Isaiah chapter 24, verse 17. It says, fear in the pit and the snare upon the inhabitant of the earth. So you people are taken up in an evil case, Snare. And it said, fear in the pit and the snare upon the inhabitant of the earth. So there's no escaping the judgment of Yahweh Bashim Yashah. There is no escaping the missiles, man. Verse 18, and it shall come to pass that he who fleeth from the noise of the fear shall fall into the pit, and he that cometh up out of the midst of the pit shall be taken in the snare. So basically, if you escape all these different plagues, right, you escape the famine, you escape all hell breaking loose, people killing each other, you escape, these unnatural disasters, you escape, getting sent to the front lines of World War III, right? It says, basically, for the windows from on high are open and the foundations of the earth do shake, which is the point, right? The windows on high are open. Missile defense systems ain't gonna stop these missiles, man. America's wide open for attack. Wide open for I don't want to get explicit, but that whore of Babylon, she gonna take it. She gonna take a big one. a big one, some big ones. She gonna get gangbanged, That harlot, she about to get ripped apart. So it says, for the windows on high are open and the foundations of the earth do shake. The missiles, man. And it's gonna go into it. Verse 19, the earth is utterly broken down. The earth is clean dissolved. The earth is moved exceedingly. So what has the power to cause that? To cause the earth to shake and to cleanly dissolve it. ICBM missiles, man. So the earth is utterly broken down. The earth is clean dissolved. The earth is moved exceedingly. The earth shall rail to and fro like a drunkard, and shall be removed like a cottage, and the transgression thereof shall be heavy upon it, and it shall fall and not rise again. That's right. So, in Revelation, it speaks about what? There's going to be a great earthquake such as was never since there was a nation, There's going to be the greatest earthquake ever. It's going to break the Richter scale, It's literally going to reshape the earth. The missiles are going to reshape the earth. After the smoke clears, it's going to look like a brand new world. Purified, new lands, Everything's going to look different, man. Right? It says, and it shall fall and not rise again, which is Babylon the Great, because Esau Edom, he's risen twice. You know, the Greeks, the Romans, you know, well, 3 times. This is his 3rd time. You know, he fucked it up. He fucked it up just like before. He never got it right, you know. So this is why he's worthy of this punishment. You know, Yahweh Shemashah is coming to punish these devils, man. You know, Jeremiah 49 says, it is a time of the calamity of Esau, the time that I will visit him. So Yahweh Shemashah is surely visiting the world that he made with all these plagues, these pestilences, and ultimately he's going to visit with that fire from World War III, these missiles getting shot off, as well as the laser beams coming from Yahweh's chariot with the angels, you know. So with that, I'm going to close out and give all praises, glory, and honor unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem Chakodash. Double honors unto the apostles of GMS that gave us his truth, and salutations to all the Agabishinists word. Shalom.